We are starting off our economic discussion with the rabbits. The rabbits are a big one that is on the table a lot for us as we look into becoming more sustainable, watching where our money is going, all things like that. And so this is a very, very interesting discussion. As you can see, the bunnies out in the hutches, this is how we keep them. It works for us. It makes them very seasonal, which does influence, some outcomes that we have. But it is how we do it, and we're going to walk you through just how much it costs us to do it.
All right, so we are back in the house, and it's time to go through the numbers. Now, I guess one thing we'll say off the front end, the rabbits were kind of on the back burner for us this year. We had them, we maintained them, we kept them, but we didn't necessarily use them to their full potential. So the numbers don't look amazing. There's room for improvement, and a lot of that has to do with the various what would you call that, processes we were going through to fine-tune our homestead. So rabbits, put it bluntly, they were on the table for a while as something that we might not keep doing, and by the end of the year we made the decision to keep them. So 2021 is not necessarily a bumper year for rabbits.
It's certainly not showing them well. But I do think moving forward, it's something that we've kind of made that tough decision on keeping it, not keeping it, raising them in a different fashion, investing more money in them. There's a lot of factors that kind of sit really heavy on the rabbits right now, and we waffle back and forth. So even, saying that we're going to be sticking with them and putting a lot into them right now, watch this space, because there's just a few issues that we've come across with them that have kind of stalemated us in 2021 and are carrying over to 2022 because, well, essentially it is a case of...
That's just how it works.
Yeah. Other things were producing better, so they got priority, basically. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to the rabbits, I think our big thing that we didn't have was a lot of litters this year.
Mm-hmm. We still had litters, but we had fewer young rabbits born than in years past.
Yes, we didn't breed as many times, and we also did not butcher in a timely fashion, which left us carrying over animals and things like that. But in general, we're just going to go through kind of our numbers and do a little synopsis at the end of this, I think. Mm-hmm. For expenses, what we had were pellets that we feed, a grain mixture, and shavings. One thing that we really don't factor into this price or cost is the hay, because often, as you've seen in our previous videos, what we're feeding the rabbits for hay is a waste product of the other animals on the farm. So really it's budgeted to the other animals, and the rabbits are kind of the cleanup crew. So we don't factor in hay cost really. But with pellets, our grain mixture, which we'll link the video above for that, and shavings throughout 2021, we spent $1,030.26. So not ridiculous. And live sales, we had, I didn't write down how many rabbits we sold, but anyways, it worked out to $260 in live sales. So in general, when we look at the 20 rabbits that we butchered in total, it ended up being 82 pounds of meat. Some of that was deboned, some of that was left whole, but in what went in the freezer, we had 82 pounds of rabbit meat.
So, yeah, looking at the numbers, before sort of subtracting that live sales, basically the breeding stock sale, it works out to be about $12.56 a pound to grow out the, how many pounds do we have? The 82 pounds of rabbit that we produced, which kind of seems high, but then when you look at that total price, it's not ridiculous. Now there's room for improvement on feeding rabbits and producing rabbits. Now, before we go into the next bit, one thing to consider is that's price per pound averaged out over the rabbits that we consumed. You obviously have to maintain your breeders, so you can kind of look at there. I'm sure there is a sweet spot for it, but when you have more youngborn, you're going through more food, which increase your food prices, but it also allows you to kind of depreciate that over your breeding stock. So I don't know if we're kind of in the middle ground here, because we still, I mean, 82 pounds of rabbit is still a lot of rabbit. So we say we didn't produce a lot. We say we didn't produce a lot. We still produced a lot of product from them. Could we have produced more? Yes, but the feed cost at the way we were feeding this year, or this past year, would have also gone up. So that's a hard that's a hard one to break down and
actually
analyze.
When you bring that up, that's one thing that we have noticed in the latter part of 2021 was the pellet feed price was going up. We had an increase from January of 2021 till December of 2021 of about $5.60 a bag. And when you're going through the amount we are to feed our 11 breeders and X number of offspring, it does add up pretty quick in that $5 a bag. If you're feeding 40 bags over the year, that's $200 extra just to feed them. So that's something that really kind of hit hard and got us really kind of brought around the conversation over and over about whether the rabbits were going to be something that stayed on the farm. And we've kind of, this will be coming in an upcoming video, but we have kind of discussed some different options for feeding them and managing them. And yeah, we're going to kind of play with that this year. So there'll be a little bit experimenting and probably a little bit more rabbit content this year, because that is something we really need to improve and focus on.
They're going to be a bigger focus than they were last year.
Exactly. So one of the things that helps to bring that cost down, and we find this through all of the animals that we raise, by breeding purebred stock, we do have really decent live sales. And if you then factor in what you've brought in from those live sales to bring it down off of the cost of feeding them, we end up with about $9.39 a pound. So it does make a significant difference off that poundage price. And I think one of the things we kind of aim for around the farm is trying to keep in that. Ideally, it'd be nice to raise meat for less than $8 a pound organically, or, well, it's not organically, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Home-fed, home-raised.
You're trying to find a balance.
So we still have
versus...
Exactly. So we still have some improvements we need to make on this. I believe last year we were a lot better in numbers than what we were this year. But
that number per pound still includes what you needed to feed those ones that you did sell too, right? So,
and the prices as the numbers as we work them out here, this is something that I think everybody needs to think about and factor in. When you just go and purchase some animals to raise out, you don't have the expense of the breeders that you need to factor in.
There's no maintenance.
And we are working out our cost per pound to include the breeder's cost. So an interesting project that might come this year is actually working out what it costs per pound for just feeding those the grow outs, because that would give some people a little bit more accurate idea of what it costs to actually raise just the meat portion. But for us, in the way that we run our farm, we breed all the animals ourselves, and it does factor in, and you have to think about those in your numbers.
It's where what do you call that, sustainability and economics kind of collide head on, and it doesn't work out. There are more cost effective ways to do things, i.e. if you could buy a bunch of rabbits to grow them out, you're not going to have the overhead. But your sustainability side goes the other way. So you're trying to find a balance there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think as we kind of wrap up this first homestead economics video, we thought we would touch on one of our more popular topics, which was the rabbits. And also, I think, one of our bigger disappointments this year with the farm and how well we did.
I don't know if I would say complete disappointment. The thing with the rabbits is, I mean, that overall cost of basically
a little over
$1,000 for the number of animals, like I say, that's 82 pounds of food that went into the freezer, or meat that went into the freezer. We do have the pelts that we did keep this year. We haven't factored that in yet, because we haven't really gone very far on that. But stay tuned for a video on the tanning process we did use, because we finally found something that works well for us.
Yes, so next year that will be another thing that factors in.
And you're still getting the benefit of
manure.
Putting them on the garden, the manure and that sort of thing. So there's multiple benefits, and that's where economics are good to track, but you have to
There's gray area.
There's gray area. There's things that are hard to quantify. So I wouldn't say the rabbits were a disappointment, but the rabbits, compared to some of the other animal endeavors, I'm going to put it that way, that we have, kind of are a bit more isolated. They're less integrated with the property, and that's a whole nother discussion to go down. So it's very easy to look at it and say, you know, we produced what we did for that price. That's actually not that bad. That's very repeatable. And if that was all we were using to grow for meat, you could probably significantly improve on that. But there's some other caveats with the sustainability side of it that we do think factor in that we're not going to get into in this video. No.
But the one thing or another thing that I think to kind of take home from this is it is, I'm going to say it this way, and it is maybe a little bit improper to say it this way, but $1,000 is really nothing in the grand scheme of things. No. It's not necessarily proper to say it that way, but it is. And if, for example, you were somebody that lived in town and could not have other livestock to create your protein content and that sort of thing, to spend $1,000 to get your meat product is amazing. Yeah. So it only factors in for us because we compare it to some of the bigger livestock that we're able to raise.
Do more extensively because of space. Space and time are like the ultimate limiting factors for everything. So.
And the other thing that we also should mention in this, these 20 rabbits that we butchered and included in here is human consumption. Mm-hmm. The one thing that we really forgot to track this year was what we fed to our cats. Rabbits is a main staple diet for our cats, and we didn't even think about that when we were kind of pumping out the cat food. So this year, that's another thing that we plan to track, is watching how much meat poundage goes into our cat food, or raw cat food, when we make it. So
and that's both stuff that could be, i.e., you know, cooking a whole rabbit to feed to cats versus also saving organ meats and stuff that we may or may not eat otherwise. Mm-hmm. So yeah. There's a lot of different ways to look at that. So kind of as another thing closing, we're going to link our economic video for rabbits from last year.
The 2020.
To 2020 to sort of compare. Obviously, there was some caveats in there as to why it didn't work.
Yeah, it seems to be repeating itself every year. There's always something with the rabbits, and we justify it, and we, quantify it or whatever, that it didn't work or it didn't reach the goals that we had hoped. So hopefully in year 3 of our economics, you'll see some really good improvements.
Well, incremental improvements. Right?
Watch this space to see how badly we fail.
Yeah, feel free to go back and check out that video, and you can kind of compare how we did in 2020 versus 2021, and we'll be on to another sort of breakdown, an economic breakdown of
what we spent on the farm this year next week.